watching the Brotherhood of Gaming video game show, the only video game show that thinks that mascots should make a triumphant return for video games. I'm your host, William Morris. Now, if you guys recall, last year I brought you guys a review on the classic Rocket Knight Adventures, which was one of my childhood favorites, as well as considered, well, one of Konami's biggest franchises in terms of retro gaming popularity. So, as you all would expect, a sequel would have been made years later. Well, years later might have been a stretch, but 1 year later to be exact, and that would be Rocket Knight Adventures 2, which was doubly named Sparkster for some reason. That explains why I never knew about it, and it was also released on the Super Nintendo. I think a little clarity is in order here.
We're all familiar with Rocket Knight Adventures, the classic on the Sega Genesis. It needs no explanation. However, a short time later, literally less than a year later, that's how good it was, a sequel was being developed. However, there were two versions available. The Super Nintendo version, titled Sparkster, was released in October of 1994, and Sparkster, Rocket Knight Adventures 2, was released on the Sega Genesis of the same year, but in February. How would you tell the difference, though, because, well, technically they both say Sparkster on the cover and nothing else. So one would ask, where does Rocket Knight Adventures 2 come in? I mean, the box sure doesn't say anything about it, and the manual has no record of it either. Not even the game's title screen mentions it. So where is it? Oh, there it is. You have to boot up the game, start it, complete the little bonus level successfully, and then it'll show you. Huh, that's weird. Why is this a big deal, one may wonder? Well, the Super Nintendo version and the Sega version are entirely different games with different control schemes. Not to mention, the plots are also very different. However, this is how it goes. The Super Nintendo version of Sparkster has no continuity or relation to the original Rocket Knight Adventures on the Sega Genesis. It's basically a fictional Elseworld tale that's considered non-canonical to the timeline as a whole, whereas the Sega version is the true sequel, picking up where the first game left off. Both games play for the most part entirely different with completely different stories and moves. This was also true because Konami had a habit of creating different games altogether under the same title for multiple consoles. So for the time being, we're going to only focus on the true sequel.
So story-wise, Sparkster had defeated the Dividendo's Empire, which of course you remember as being the final bad guys from the last game. And, well, unfortunately, a new threat happened to have emerged from their defeat, and it was led by King Ghidorah, who happens to be leader of a lizard army. And what does he want to do? Well, what else? He wants to take over the kingdom of Zephyrus and, well, quite possibly the world.
Of course!
But I guess you could also say for a little bit of life insurance, he also went one step above and hired Axelgear, whom, again, most of you guys might remember from Sparkster the Rocket Knight Adventures Part 1, who is, well, as you guys remember, Sparkster's ultimate rival, who may have caused some really tragic things to happen in his life. So you can imagine, Sparkster is not too happy about that.
Upon startup, Axelgear rushes forward and kidnaps Princess Cherry, who happens to be the cousin of Princess Sherry, who was also the main victim in the last game, Rocket Knight Adventures, who we were spending most of the time rescuing.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Despite being a sequel, Rocket Knight Adventures 2 has a lot of major gameplay differences from the first one, but we'll get to more of that later. When you start the game, you're introduced to a beginning cutscene with Sparkster going for a sword of some kind. Now, if you're impatient, you can skip this entire cutscene by pressing the start button to begin the game. However, if you do that, I highly recommend resetting the entire console because guess what? You already messed up. This here is one of the key differences. It turns out you absolutely need to let the beginning cutscene play out. Why? Well, it's very simple. It's a beginner's trap. Shortly after you watch Sparkster grabbing the sword, Axel suddenly attacks, and you're given control of Sparkster and his mech, as seen in the first game with the same fighting controls. Now bear in mind, this is all still considered the beginning intro, so pressing start can still skip the entire scenario. But if you fight Axel and win, this will happen. After that, the game begins as usual. Now you're probably asking me, why in the hell did any of that matter? Well, guess what? The sword you saw Sparkster pick up after that whole ordeal, it turns out that it's actually a key. Yeah, a key. One of 7 of them, to be honest. It so happens that if you want to see the full ending to the game and unlock the special in-game bonus, you need to find and grab all 7 of them, which are hidden anywhere in the game throughout numerous stages and levels.
You guys are all familiar with the Sonic the Hedgehog games and the Chaos Emeralds, right?
In Sonic the Hedgehog games, it's very common that during stages and under certain circumstances, usually by collecting enough rings or by stumbling upon them, you can trigger bonus stages. Pretty challenging ones too. But if you complete them, you are rewarded with a Chaos Emerald. Collecting all 7 of these rewards the player with the true ending and being able to transform into Super Sonic at any given time. Here, in Sparkster, it's the same basic principle, however, a little more challenging. In Sonic games, no matter where you are in the game, you can access these bonus stages and try again should you mess up. However, in Rocket Knight 2, there is no way to tell where these sword keys could be. There's no indication when one could be nearby, and since a majority of the levels have multiple paths, you could easily bypass any number of them and, well, never know it.
Now, of course, getting these keys aren't a requirement to actually complete the game or accomplish the story, but I guess you could say if you want to fully complete it or 100% complete it, it's only going to make your life that much harder, but at least the benefit is kind of worth it.
The only really way to know for sure is to keep playing the game again and replaying the same levels, going different paths, and trying to look for secrets and hopefully stumbling upon one of them. Unless, of course, you want to be a cheap bastard like me and look for a guide online that tells you exactly where they all are, but who wants to do that? Alright, so how does this game work? Well, first of all, it follows the exact opposite rules of the first game. Rocket packing was good for certain situations and attacks, but your sword was the primary weapon of use, being able to tear through enemies like butter with the whirling blade. In this game, while the sword is still your main weapon of use, its uses aren't as efficient as now it is just to use the jetpack. In this game, instead of holding A down to charge the rocket pack like before, now it does it all by itself. Not just out of convenience, but it gives you the hint that you will and should probably be using this a lot more. Which, to be honest, I kinda like this feature. It took a little getting used to, having had been playing the first game for so many years, but once you adapt to the new playstyle, it stands great all on its own, and at the rate of its charge, you can pretty much stay airborne almost indefinitely. And it's now even more useful in fighting situations. The final new feature worth mentioning is the real oddest one of all, the slot machine. Yeah, you see that little thing up in the corner? It is definitely an oddball, at least at first. What happens is during the stage, when you collect exactly 10 blue gems, the slot starts spinning. 1 of 6 items will randomly drop down for you. These items range from possibly a free man, another gem, a bomb, yeah that sucks, a red gem. What does that do? Well, it's worth exactly 10 blue gems, which means you get a free slot roulette. You could get some meat to replenish your health, or a rocket pack that will just automatically launch you in a certain direction. It does have its uses in certain situations, but it is also capable of getting you killed.
Interesting thing about this little feature is, of course, depending on your luck, it could have several outcomes. You could either get so many bombs that the game becomes an absolute nightmare, or if you're lucky, you could get so many meats and so many extra lives that the game is practically a breeze.
So now what about the game as a whole? The adventure itself? Well, as you would expect, it has a lot of colorful, vibrant, and interesting places to explore. Like I mentioned, there are multiple ways to progress through a level. Again, referencing Sonic the Hedgehog 3. These different paths could lead to some harder trials or hidden secrets. The levels themselves can be pretty wild too. It's a lot of fun to play through even after completing it. It's not a very long game, especially if you know how to play, as you can clear it in a little over an hour. However, like the first one, it can be pretty challenging in certain areas. But hey, it's the good kind of challenge that keeps you coming back for more. I certainly didn't give up. Oh, and another feature that probably kept me playing, oh my god, the soundtrack. Yeah, this really should have been a no-brainer. The music is awesome. Go Genesis! So, once again, just like before, you go through hell and back, you show Axel who's the top opossum in town, you save Cherry, you beat the hell out of King Ghidorah, and oh my god, fight one of the scariest final bosses I've seen on this console. You live happily ever after with your princess girlfriend, and you end up waiting 15 years for your third game. Phew! Honestly, guys, the Sparkster series is some of classic gaming's finest. The fact that out of a ton of video game mascots that were being pushed to the brink of exhaustion, it is by no means a miracle that this little opossum made it to the top and with only 4 games and a couple of cameos. His stories and adventures were just that fun and memorable. Pretty basic, sure, but the adventure itself was just all that more fun.
Now, if you can get your hands on a copy of one, or a few of them, I would highly recommend it. You probably won't even regret it. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the Brotherhood of Gaming video game show. It's been a blast. And always, be sure to subscribe, check our Facebook, you know, the usual. And of course, we'll see you next time. You can always request games for us to do. You can check out our Patreon, which, hey, it's an option. See you, gamers.
Hey, if you liked that video, be sure to subscribe for more. Share it with your friends and family and all of the people that you know and love. And be sure to check out our playlist for more amazing videos from TheBrotherhoodOfGaming.com. And as always, keep on gaming, viewers.